All right, all right. It is Legally Blind Journal 27, and definitely been working through some things, some pretty significant migraines and whatnot. So, had some time with the counselors and whatnot. And if you are going through anything like this, you know, just don't avoid the counselors. They're definitely helpful. Helps you keep a good perspective and modify perspective where needed. So definitely want to say that up front. So that said, you're always going to have your high days and your low days from the perspective of the mental side of this thing. The biggest thing I can say and the biggest thing that helps me, and I have my high days and low days, that is for sure. Had some pretty rough ones lately, and it's just reminding myself over and over again that, look, got to find new ways to do old things and be okay with certain things and, find grace and forgiveness, not only for others, but also for yourself. And those are really, really big things because, while a positive attitude doesn't fix everything, I can tell you one thing for certain, that a negative attitude will break everything. So, does you no good to worry? Does you really no good to have a negative attitude? Does you great good to have a positive attitude? Plan for the worst, hope for the best, and keep finding new ways to do old things. And that's just what it is. This week I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the adaptive tech, some of the pros, some of the cons, some of the letdowns, some of the things that have been a nice surprise on two of the items. So the first thing that I want to talk about, in case anybody doesn't have experience with these, and I realize that I'm blessed and lucky, and probably more blessed than anything, to have the experience with it, is first and foremost is this little device on the side of my head here. This is the Orcam My Eye Pro. And basically with this device, there's some goods, bads, whatnot. I waited for a while for it. Really, really happy to have gotten it in. Finally got a chance to really use it, learn a bunch about it. I'm sure there's a lot more that I need to learn, but enough to speak intelligently on it. And so where I'm at right now is I'm still hovering around 12 to 13 inches of functional vision and for reading. So I've pulled everything a little closer. I'm using my Fusion software, which is awesome for reading to me and some of the magnification side of it now. But that's all, great and dandy for right around here. The thing is, you go to a restaurant, you go to a grocery store, and those can labels are not blown up. Those restaurant menus certainly are not blown up to this big font. So how do you deal with that? And there's a bunch of ways to do it. This is just one of them. So on the device here, what I was hoping for, and I'm going to start with the not so good. What I was hoping for was to be able to, go into a Lowe's or a grocery store or something and see or point at the big signs that tell you what's going to be down that aisle and have it read that to me. And that's one function it's not going to do. I asked several times and nobody really knew if it would do that, or danced around it a little bit, but nobody really knew. It sounded like, and the reality is it won't. There are really big letters up there, but it's just too far away for it. So it just won't pick it up at all. What it will do, and this is a nice surprise, is so in the manual, it specifically states that you'd only read, you need to put something it needs to read about 12 to 15 inches, I think it was, and from it. But what it's talking about is standard size lettering. And what I found is the shelving where they have the larger font, sales price, draw your attention to it. It's bigger letters. It'll read those to you even from about 3 feet away, which is nice. What it will do is, of course, if it's within that 12 to 15 inches ish, it'll read it to you. Now, I'll also say setting expectations appropriately, because mine, I didn't have the right expectations. What it does is when you point at it, it takes a picture of the document that you're pointing at, and then it OCR reads it, and it's pretty quick. I mean, it's a few seconds, but it's pretty quick. And then it starts reading it to you in your ear. And you can get it to read like certain sentences and whatnot, but the fact is it's got to take a picture, it's got to OCR read it, then it can read it into you. It's not like, instantly reading as you're pointing or any of that. So that little bit of a delay is something to get used to. It's not the end of times. It's just something to get used to there. But in a restaurant setting, where you're, trying not to have your big magnification out, or your phone, you're zoomed in a huge amount, and even then trying to read it it's challenging, obviously, and all that stress and strain is not good for you. And if you're like me, you end up with the migraines and stuff because you're just trying too hard. This device is nice for that, because you just point at it and it will take over that heavy lifting for you and read it to you. Now, on the other side of things, the battery life is dismal. I'm just not going to throw a punch on that. It literally, within an hour or less of active use, probably less, it's dead, like dead. They do sell on Amazon. I saw for, I think it's $80. They sell a belt clip with the battery charger. You just pop it in. And so it can be charging when you're not actively using it. And that's doable because this thing works on magnetics. So there's a little thing you put onto the glasses. I don't know if you can see it, but it's basically got two magnets. You can't put it on backwards once you put it on, once you get the things right. And it just clips on. So you can just pop it off, put it into a belt, pull it straight up, pop it back on, and you'd stay in business because it'd be constantly, trickle charging back over to it. Which brings me to the other thing that I don't love about the design, and that is the charging. So I doubt you can see it, but the charging part is a special proprietary charging, and it's magnetic. And look, I love the fact that it's magnetic. That's great. But it doesn't seem to be a standard like USB. I mean, it's a special little magnetic piece. They do put two more of them in the bag, which I haven't figured out what that's for. I'll be honest. I got to find that somewhere. I haven't found it in the manual. But you can't just pop a USB-C into this thing. You have to have your special charger, which means you have to tote that with you. Now the belt one, I don't know how that charges, the actual belt one. Now, if that charges via a USB-C or something, man, I might would get that. I mean, it's $80. I haven't done it yet because it's $80, but I might would get that so that I could literally throw this into it and kind of use the belt as my charger, so I don't have to mess with this special extra cord laying around the house that, The other thing is, it's jet black. If anybody from from Orcam was to happen to watch this video, give me an option to make this thing even with one red stripe, like one red stripe going down here or something, because this thing being jet black, it disappears like into the mist for me. There's no contrast, and contrast is important. So that said, though, I'll also say on the good side, relatively user-friendly, relatively intuitive. It takes a little while to get used to the swiping of the menus. I've picked the wrong thing so many times I can't count. But once you get used to them, it's not too bad. The other feature that it has, and unfortunately up until recently, this wouldn't have been a feature that was nice for me, but I've had a shift in my vision, and that making out facial features is a challenge if we get to about 5 or 6 feet now for me, and by a challenge I mean I can't do it. What is cool about this is, and I don't know the distance it'll go out to, but it seems like somewhere in between 5 and 8 feet ish. What you can do is you can do a process to record who somebody is into it. So I did this with my spouse, and so anytime it sees her, it says her name in my ear. And by in my ear, it has a speaker on it, which of course it's not great in the respect. I mean, I'm glad it has one, but it's not great in the respects of it's yapping where everybody's hearing you. So what I love is that you can hook it up to almost any Bluetooth. And I say the word almost because I was having a little trouble with iPods. I don't know if it's because I have those hooked up to several other devices and it just is stingy and only wants to be its own self. So I took an old jobber of one, threw it onto it, and works perfectly. Now, I hate having to carry a separate thing around. Again, that goes back to that conversation we've had before on this. But hey, it does work perfectly if you put it onto Bluetooth and throw the Bluetooth in your ear. It's talking in your ear for that. So, good, bad, and ugly. Yes, it'll read menus to you. It'll read labels. It'll read barcodes if it's hooked up to a Wi-Fi source. So that can be a little tricky. It will give you about 45 minutes to an hour continuous use. It will tell you who people are. It's supposed to tell you about scenery, like, oh, there's a mountain, there's trees. I haven't gotten that far with it yet. It will not read the big signs that tell you what's the general items down an aisle in a grocery store. That's outside of its scope. It will not give you nice long battery life, and it will not give you a USB charging source. And it doesn't give you contrast. So if you set it down onto a counter that's a darker color, you may lose it. So I know I could, take a paint pen and make a red, line on it or something, and I'll probably end up doing something like that. But I just hate to do stuff like that to items. The only other thing I'll say, and I meant to mention it earlier on, it is, it's got a little, they make it as light as they can, I think, but it's got a little weight to it. So I will say with it, I take it off when I'm not using it, and I put it on when I am. I don't just leave it on, because it does have a little bit of weight to it, and you can feel it on the bridge of the nose from the weight of the glasses, and on the ear contortion where it's torquing out the ear just a little bit. So I'm going to tell you, I put it on, I use it, I take it off. And that's really mainly around the weight issues and trying to save the battery. I turn it off after I use it. So that's what that does. That's what that is. Pros, cons. Also, and for anybody that can't see it on the thumbnail, that's what the top row of pictures are, and then the first one on the bottom left. Then the second one on the bottom we get into is a device. So this thing basically, there's several manufacturers. Mine's, I think, Onyx. DaVinci makes one, but it looks like, for anybody who can't see the picture, it looks like a old-timey laminate projector from school. Essentially, kinda. Basically, it's got a single camera aiming down. It's got a single camera that's aiming down, and what that camera does is anything you put on the ground or on the table in front of it, it can zoom that item in. You got some manual controls. It autofocuses, which is really, really nice. But you can zoom in on the thing. You can change the color contrast, which is great. So like for myself, the white background and the black writing's really rough. I can switch that to where it's a black background with white writing, which is better for me. You've got yellow to black and blues and all kinds of stuff in there. There's a bunch of contrast options, which is nice. and you can manually zoom, control how close you zoom in, zoom out. The zoom's amazing on that thing. On that main camera, you can also flip a lens cover up, turn it around so it's facing actually the other direction, and you can actually zoom in on the TV. And all this presents on a, I don't know, it's probably 27 or 32 inch. It's probably 32 inch, I don't know, screen. It might be 27, I can't tell. But the point is, it's a larger screen. So you literally could zoom in across the room and have whatever your spouse is playing on the TV blown up on this thing. I use it, of course, for looking at work documents, looking at manuals, farm manuals, all that type of stuff. But when it's in that downward position, that part does a wonderful, wonderful job. It also has a camera on the left-hand side, which is kind of hard to see in the picture. But on the left-hand side, there's another camera attached to it. And what that camera does is, basically, in a nutshell, that camera is for OCR. So whatever you put underneath that camera, it will OCR read, which is really nice in the respects of, like I put a power bill under there the other day. It OCR read it. It picked out 17 different areas or sections of the bill. So you can literally click on, it's a touch screen. You could click on the screen if you really wanted to jump down to, around the middle of the bill is the information you're looking for. You can pick the bubbles that it has assigned to that area, and it'll just read that to you. It'll read the whole thing off to you. It will read every number, which is why I like the bubbles, because, on a power bill, the whole top section is, I don't care what the account number is, right now I'm trying to find out how much the bill is. So once it finishes reading it, that the billing amount is always in this one kind of area. So you can just click and it's a big bubble. You just click the bubble that's close to that. It'll jump down and read that block, that section as it defined it to you, which is really, really cool. You can save stuff in it. I don't know why you would, but you could, and whatnot. It does have a handle on it. It's pretty easy to pick up and move. It's not heavy. The case and the XY table are in back order, so I'm waiting for that. Once we get that in, I'll do a much more in depth on it, and once I've played with it a little more. But I will say that device I've used probably, almost as much as the iPad. The iPad's been great. Use that for a lot of different visual impairment issues. But that thing, that Onyx, I think it's called an Onyx, is fantastic. The Oricam, I'm using it for specific purposes. It's not going to handle all the things that I was hoping for. But that's okay. It does fill a specific slot in the in the needs. So then in the bottom three pictures, if you can't see it, and you probably can't tell what this is, even if you can. So I was trying to figure out, how do I zoom in without holding my phone up all the time when I need to get close to an object with the tractor and not hit it like I bumped a building the other day. So I've got a pair of night vision goggles, NVGs, but they also have day vision on them. But they're mono, and you can't see in the picture, but they're a mono screen. So basically, in a nutshell, on the front, it looks like there's two round lenses like normal binoculars, but these are monoculars, and it's got a 2.7-inch screen like a phone screen. So when you flip it down, what you actually are looking at is a phone screen. Now, for something as close as the end of the tractor, you don't see much FOV, much field of vision. It's you're only seeing maybe a foot by a foot, or maybe 2 feet by 2 feet tops. It's very tight. But for my purposes, I can ride around when I'm doing these close up. I'm not wearing them like all the time every day, but when again, for a visual impairment thing tool, when I need to, like, I was putting rocks really close to the building, and I was trying not to hit it again. So what I did was I dropped these down over my eyes, and that allowed me to tell, okay, I'm 12 inches, 18 inches, I'm 6 inches away from the building. And I got off the tractor several times and tested this out, physically feeling it and whatnot. And it was good. It was pretty close. I mean, it might have been off an inch or two, but without them, I'm off feet. So it allowed me with confidence to do that job. So again, that goes into finding new ways to do old things. And I wasn't crying, but it was a little bummed that I scratched the building a little bit, bumped it. I didn't knock it down or anything, didn't do that, but it put a little ding in it, nothing major that last time. So this was me trying to find a new way to do an old thing, and it worked. It worked well. So I was pretty happy with that. And then, I will say too, that, when my spouse is like, oh, look out in the back across the yard or field, there's some deer out there. It's useless for me. I can't do that with my vision. With these, you can, because essentially they're binoculars, but because they're turning it into like a phone screen, it doesn't matter that my one eye is twice as bad as my other eye. And the fact that they're right up to my face, like you would hold a phone really close, again, I can get enough of enough clarity on it to make it cool to look at that deer now. So I was pretty happy with that. I was hoping for a little more FOV on it, but the ones that have more of the field of vision are 3 times as much money, and I can't do that. But this will be fine. It'll work for what I needed it for, which is great. So at the end of the day, in summary and recap, biggest thing is I got to keep reminding myself, and I do. And I have my bad days like everyone else. But how do you have more good days and bad days? And it comes down to if you have a positive attitude, you'll get through those tough times quicker. If you have a negative attitude, you'll never get to the good times. In fact, the good times will become bad times. So the attitude is key if you're living through this low vision, legally blind journey at some point in it. We are all on a different spectrum. We all have different needs with this. We're all going to have to find a different path. But I think one thing that is probably absolutely could be said as a truth, and that is your attitude can make this journey or break this journey for you. And trying to find new ways to do old things, you're not going to always find a way. You got to be okay with that. You got to give yourself some grace. However, with the right attitude and the openness, you can find the way for most things. So, on that note, my counselors gave me some things to try for these migraines, and we'll work on that over the next week or so. And if I'm up for it, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit deeper. All right. Well, with that having been said, I think that's probably good enough for this week. Hopefully this is helping somebody. Helps me to talk about it. And the hope that somebody out there someday will see it and it'll help them helps me too. So I appreciate the time, and y'all be good out there. Peace out, Girl Scout.